Here on my homestead, I'm currently growing 15 different grape varieties in my backyard. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 important tips about how to grow grapes at home to get an abundant harvest. Plus, I'll let you in on a little secret I've learned from experience, which actually contradicts what some popular research online says about grapes. Let's jump right in. My first tip for growing grapes is to know your grow zone. Before planting grapes, it can be a good idea to figure out what grapes have been known to do well in your specific area. Your grow zone or climate zone is determined by the average annual extreme minimum temperature in your zip code over the last 30 years. If you're in the United States, to figure out your specific zone, you can go to the U.S. Department of Agriculture website, type in your zip code, and it will tell you exactly what zone you're in. As an example, you can see on the screen that I've typed in the zip code 90210, and it tells me the grow zone for this zip code is Zone 10B. I'll put a link to the website in this video's description box. After you know your zone, you can look up different types of grapes that grow well in that zone. Certain grapes are known to be better for colder zones, while other grape varieties may perform best in hotter zones. My next tip is to research different varieties of grapes before buying a grapevine. It might seem simple, but there are lots of questions you should think about. Personally, I did not do enough research before growing some of my grape varieties. Think about, are you looking to grow table grapes for eating, like these ones from my backyard here, or wine grapes to use to make wine, or maybe a combination of both? Also, are you a green grape person or a purple grape person? Do you prefer smaller, crisper grapes or larger, softer grapes? And do you care if your grapes have seeds in them, or is that a deal breaker? There are literally thousands of different grape varieties grown worldwide, and while some are very similar to each other, others are completely different in flavor, texture, color, taste, and in how they grow. Moving on, you'll also want to consider the sunlight in your yard or area you plan to grow grapes. Many grape varieties grown in the ground perform best when they have at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. This is because grapevines use sunlight to produce energy for developing their roots, leaves, and fruit. Sunlight plays an important role in helping develop the flavor and quality of your grapes, and insufficient sunlight can lead to lower fruit yields, poor quality fruit, and a higher risk of diseases like powdery mildew. That being said, I've seen people grow grapes in all kinds of places, in their yards, on their patios, climbing up pergolas like this one, and along fences. And sometimes growing grapes in the shade works. In fact, if you plan to grow grapes in containers like I'm also doing, partial shade can help ensure the soil in the container doesn't dry out as quickly. Next, before you plant your grapevine, think about the type of soil you'll be growing your grapes in. Grapevines have been known to thrive in different soil types, but making sure the soil is well draining is very important. If you choose to grow your grapes in a container, make sure there are drainage holes in the bottom. This helps water to flow through the container so your grape roots don't become waterlogged. You can perform a drainage test by watering your grapevine, then checking how quickly the water soaks into the soil. If the water takes a while to sink in, chances are you'll want to amend the soil with some materials that promote drainage, like pumice or perlite. While grapes appreciate consistent watering, which I'll share more about in a minute, they do not want their roots to sit in stagnant water for long periods of time. Luckily, there isn't any sitting water in this grape container I just watered, so everything is looking great. And now finally, let's talk more about water. Grapes like consistent water, especially in the first year or two when they're getting established. I learned this the hard way when I first started growing grapes a few years ago. I got my grapevine, I picked a variety that I liked, and I planted the vine in good soil and in direct sunlight in my backyard. But all of that didn't matter because I didn't water the grapevine enough. Sadly, that grapevine never recovered, but I learned a valuable lesson, and that is to think about how you plan to water your grapevine before you plant it, and be realistic. If you can set up an irrigation system like I did here, you won't have to worry about manually watering your grapes. But if you don't have access to an irrigation system, or you prefer to water your vine manually, I highly recommend setting a calendar or phone reminder for yourself so you don't forget to give your grapevine the water it craves. Because I'm in a warmer climate, I typically water my grapevines using an irrigation system 3 days a week for about 20 minutes each day. My grapes seem to love it, and here is part of our grape harvest this year. This variety is Reliance, which is a red seedless table grape, and these green grapes are Interlaken, another seedless table grape variety that is delicious and produces heavily for us. And these dark purple grapes are the Tom Cord variety. This is a hybrid seedless table grape that combines Concord grapes and Thompson grapes. I first discovered how amazing these grapes were when my in-laws grew them. My husband and I liked these so much that we decided to plant our own Tom Cord grapevine. Here is a quick look at some of the grapes from our vine, which has produced really well for us so far. With such abundant grape harvests, sometimes the problem is how to use all the grapes before they become raisins. I made a video all about how to make grape juice and grape juice popsicles using fresh grapes from the garden. That video is linked on the screen and in the description box. Okay, now that I've shared my tips for growing grapes, I'm going to share a secret. My secret is that I broke one of the first rules for growing grapes, and I planted grapes that were not recommended for my grow zone. This is also known as zone pushing. Zone pushing is the gardening practice of growing something outside of its recommended grow zone by modifying the growing environment or conditions to help it survive and thrive. So why do people decide to zone push? The answer varies depending on who you ask, but common reasons include ignorance or the desire to grow specific plants, and some people like to experiment and challenge the boundaries of what is conventionally known to be possible. Next, let's talk about microclimates. Microclimates are areas in your backyard or garden that have different growing conditions than the surrounding area. Microclimates can be warmer or colder than the typical climate. For example, if you live near a creek or riverbed, you might have a cooler microclimate than others. Or if you have a patio cover or another overhead structure, the area under that structure shouldn't be affected by as much rain or snow, which creates a drier microclimate in that area. Another way you can zone push is by covering your plants with fabric or other protection during the cool months to make the area where they grow warmer. Zone pushers often use different forms of protection, including adding mulch around plant basins, moving plants into a greenhouse, or strategically placing their plants next to walls, fences, or other insulated areas. Ultimately, zone pushing involves some level of trial and error. I've definitely learned from experience. By accident, I pushed the zone with some of my grapevines, meaning I didn't do my research on what specific grapes were meant to grow in my area until after I planted them. It was only after my grapevines started producing grapes and I got even more invested in gardening that I learned some of the varieties I had actually weren't meant to grow in my zone. An example of this is my Lakemont grapevine, which we planted along my backyard fence right here. Most of the information you see online says this grapevine is meant to grow in zones 4 through 9, but I'm in zone 10B. As you can see, despite this variety not being recommended for my grow zone, it's healthy and thriving, and it's producing beautiful, crisp clusters of green grapes. I share this with all of you to encourage you to keep an open mind when it comes to what grapes may grow in your zone. Talk to your local nursery, or visit an online gardening forum for your area to see what grapes people are successfully growing. I get a lot of questions about growing grapes, so I'm going to answer a few of the most commonly asked ones. If you have a question I don't answer, please feel free to ask in the comments below. I know one of the main questions I had before planting my grapevines was how long after planting will the vines produce fruit so I can enjoy some delicious grapes? The information you can find about this online varies, but I've learned from experience that grapevines can produce fruit within 1 year of planting them. That being said, many of my grapevines took about 3 years to start producing grapes consistently. The grape varieties I'm growing that produce the quickest are my Jupiter grapes and my Interlaken grapes. These are both table grape varieties that you can eat right off the vine. Here is a quick video of my Jupiter grapes. These are a deep purple color with a mild muscat flavor. And these are my Interlaken grapes, which are a golden green color. Both of these grapevines took off in my backyard, and the clusters that grow on these vines are very crisp and sweet. The next question is, where should you buy grapevines? Personally, I've purchased my grapevines from a combination of a few different local nurseries and big box retail stores. I highly recommend visiting nurseries in your area and talking with the staff or owner about what types of grapes they sell and recommend to local customers. Another question that comes up is, should you buy more than one grapevine? And do you need more than one grapevine for cross-pollination purposes? The answer to this is you typically do not need more than one grapevine for pollination, since most grapes are self-pollinating. But I highly recommend more than one grapevine because grape varieties are all so different, and it's so fun to grow multiple vines so you can enjoy different flavors, textures, and unique grapes. Of course, that's up to you. The next question I'll answer is, how much space do grapevines need? The answer depends on how many grapes you want your vine to produce. If you're okay with the vine producing a few but not a crazy amount of clusters each year, you can grow your grapes in a container on your patio or in the backyard, and that doesn't take up much space at all. Now, if you want to harvest pounds of grapes each year, I recommend planting your vine in the ground and giving it at least 6 feet of space to grow. Most grapevines can grow at least 8 or more feet per year, so if you decide to grow it in a small space, you'll want to keep it pruned back so it doesn't get too out of control. And for the last question, I'll share my favorite grape variety that I'm growing. Because I'm growing 15 different grape varieties, this is a little bit like picking a favorite child. And I'll be honest, sometimes my favorite variety depends on the day. But if I had to pick right now, I'd say my favorite grape variety is Tom Cord grapes. This vine performs so well, and the flavor and texture of these grapes is superb. That's it for this video, but for more videos, I invite you to subscribe. And if you're interested to learn more about how to use an abundance of grapes, check out this video on the screen where I share all about how to juice grapes and make delicious grape popsicles for the whole family to enjoy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.